How about them Cowboys? It's the Cowboys Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Dallas Cowboys every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from America's team the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Cowboys Squad Show, starting now.
Well, hard to believe, but Cowboys OTAs wrap up today, but not us. So the Cowboys Squad Show rolls on and continues. Here we go. Good morning, and thank you for being with us. Welcome to the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast host, Marcus Mosher, crushing it every day with Landon McCool, and with my co-host for the in-season Cowboys postcasts, former Cowboys coach Glenn Stretch Smith. Gentlemen, here we go, man. Hard to believe that the OTAs are wrapping up today. We've got mandatory mini camp coming up next week. Can't wait for that. Cowboys will conclude their OTAs today, later on at the Star. Marcus, you and Landon have been all over it, as always. What have some of the highlights been this week?
Yeah, it's been George Pickens. I mean, that's kind of been the biggest story for the last month here now. And it seems like George Pickens has been finding himself being useful in this offense in the red zone. He had a really nice touchdown during the red zone period on Tuesday. And just getting him more acclimated to this offense, getting him used to playing with Dak Prescott. No CeeDee Lamb during Tuesday practice, so Pickens got to be the de facto number one receiver. I think that's going to be the biggest storyline throughout the rest of the summer is how does George Pickens fit into this offense? What's his role? Is he able to keep his head on straight? Because if the answer is yes to all of those questions and he ends up being the player everybody thinks he can be, maybe this offense can get back to the level that we saw them play at it in 2021 and 2023.
Yeah, I mean, he's the story because he's the big transition, right? He is what everybody was kind of clamoring for, was who's going to be this opposite receiver. And, and he's come in here and, he's already got himself, he's Fanucci himself, got himself number 3. So he's got himself the number he wants. And, he's making some plays, and obviously they're showcasing him. And that's exactly what they should do. And that's exactly what should be happening right now, is getting him familiar, so that when you do get to Oxnard, we've talked about it so many times on this show, with a lot of these guys, when you get to Oxnard, you're ready to go.
Coach, I got to ask you, just because you're an old ball coach, how do you feel about receivers wearing single-digit numbers? Because I know that you came from the days where everybody was in the 80s, and it was a big shock when a guy would wear like number 11. Like I remember when that was a big deal, or when Keyshawn wore number 19. So does it bother you at all?
I think it's what your eyes get used to, right? If you're used to seeing, certain numbers on guys, then that's what you're used to. I can remember, when you're exactly right. And, thanks for making me feel old, and I'll hit Luby's today at 4:30 for dinner. No problem. I'm very comfortable with it. But I remember, the one thing I do remember is when, Wade Wilson one day, because the third quarterback at times had to be he'd have to be the third receiver on the scout team. So Jason and Wade Wilson would have to be the third receivers. And there was one day Wade Wilson put all the defensive backs' numbers on his towel. And so, defensive backs, were always, had the diva numbers, right? At the time, it was the defensive backs. And he went down and scratched off all the defensive backs' numbers as he caught a ball on them. And I can remember when he scratched off Dion's number, it was such a different look because, all the defensive backs, again, had the diva numbers, and now you're getting to see the receivers with the diva numbers. I just think it's what your eyes get used to, but certainly you're used to those single-digit numbers and lower-digit numbers worn by the defensive backs.
We joked about this on a Locked On Cowboys podcast over the last couple of days about how everybody makes a big deal about what number George Pickens is wearing. But I've talked to several players, like they're very superstitious about like the number they're wearing. And if they don't like the number that they're wearing, they don't feel comfortable, and it kind of messes with their psyche. So it's kind of fun to talk about and make fun of, but like for some of these players, it is a big deal.
Yeah.
It is a big deal. And I tell you, I mean, nobody more superstitious than Dion was. I mean, he is as superstitious as it comes. I mean, he would lay his whole uniform out in front of his locker exactly like he was going to put it on, with the 2 socks, with the wristbands, the whole 9. It would lay out, and that, that's how he got dressed. And some guys absolutely, wear undergarments, that they chunky t-shirts, all of that stuff. And it's a very superstitious scenario. So yeah, those guys, everybody has their own little quirks, and including me and you.
Well, as Marcus mentioned, George Pickens is going to wear the number 3. He broke that out earlier this week. Dante Fowler Jr. is going to wear number 13. So they were able to work that out. Good for them. But on a more serious note, head coach Brian Schottenheimer praised George's, the word he used was intentionality, which is a good word. Picking up the scheme and the system quickly, playing really well on the practice field, and he's been dialed in and seems to really be enjoying the surroundings there at the Star.
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate Brian Schottenheimer's big vocabulary. I'm from just outside of Pittsburgh here, so I'm a Yinzer. We don't use those big SAT words. So thanks, Shotty, for making the rest of us feel dumb. But anyways, no, I think this is what you're hoping when you traded for George Pickens. That he's a young kid. He's 24 years old. You're hoping that as he gets into a new offense, as he realizes the importance of this situation, that he starts to become a professional. And if it doesn't happen, he's likely going to cost himself tens of millions of dollars probably over the next couple of years. So I think, again, it's June. We can't overreact to anything that we hear in June, but I think at least it's a good sign that he's on track right now.
Yeah, I'm from Aledo, Texas, and we don't use those words here either. I mean, if it doesn't have to do with some kind of fertilizer or something that you're putting in some feed that you're giving your cattle, I'm not sure I know those words either.
Nicely said. Well, on a different note, nothing new to report with the Micah Parsons project, aka his contract. By the way, that's an ode to the Alan Parsons project for those of you that might be a little bit younger.
Chicago Bulls, right?
Yes, yeah. There you go. Good job, Marcus. There you go. Great, perfect intro, long story. But Micah has not been at OTAs. However, he did post day before yesterday on X, I will be at mandatory minicamp. I haven't missed a minicamp in 4 years. Even though the contract is not done, I have teammates and a playbook. I am preparing as if I will be on the field the first week of camp, but it's in the owner's hands. Yeah. I'm ready to win a Super Bowl.
That's a smart play by Micah Parsons, right? Like, you endear yourself to the fans by showing up to minicamp without a contract. It's a new defensive scheme that he's got to learn, although I don't think there's probably a ton of learning that needs to go on here. Just go rush the passer. That's what you're going to be paid for. But I think now he's right. Like, he puts the ball in Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones's court. Like, hey, I did my part of the deal. Like, I'm here, I'm working out, I'm being a better leader. Now it's your guys' turn to pay me. Let's get this thing done before training camp, so we're not having a distraction as we get into practice, and we're not talking about every day, when is Micah going to get a deal? When is he going to get a deal? I think this is a smart play for Micah, and I'm curious to see how Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones react. Do they finally call Micah's agent and try to get a deal done? Do they work on it over summer break? We'll see.
Well, you saw Stephen react, right? You saw him say, hey, I'll give you guys an update when we have this thing done. So it felt like, Stephen was kind of a little, aggravated about the situation, or aggravated about guys asking him about it, knowing that they're going to ask him about it every day. I mean, that's the frontline topic for everybody that sits at the Star every day and has their pseudo office out there. everybody wants to know. And so I know Stephen, he kind of barked back as if he was a little bit, kind of frustrated by the situation. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm still from the school that it's basically done. They just got to work out the kinks.
And I'm the same way. There's no way that I envision us getting to week 1 or the week of week 1 and him not having a deal done. And frankly, I would be a little shocked if it's not done before we get out to Oxnard and we see practice. I think if it's not done by then, I think both sides are to blame a little bit. Like, there's been plenty of time to get this thing done. Micah's wanted to get it done. He wants to be here. The Joneses obviously want to get it done. We don't need all these distractions and contract talks when there's actual football that's going to be happening on the field. Let's get it done and move on. I think everybody knows Micah's worth whatever the money that he's going to get. We know about how much money Micah's going to make on his next contract. Just get it done.
I'm curious, just since you brought it up, Coach, and you're right, Stephen, Marcus, you too. Stephen was a little annoyed, but I'm wondering, like, is it up to Stephen and Jerry to call Micah's agent? Does the agent, is he supposed to call them and say, let's get this done? I'm half kidding, but I'm half serious. Like, I mean, there's no big mystery, so they know what they need to do. It's just a matter of somebody being deliberate and saying, okay, let's get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the guidelines have been laid out by Stephen, and probably Todd Williams has had something to do with kind of the intermediary to what's going on. And unless we're part of the conversation, we can sit here and guess all kinds of things. I believe it's probably guaranteed money. I believe it's probably has to do with signing bonus. I mean, so
money, all that kind of technical.
Yeah, so it what we're talking about here again is maybe a few $1 million here or there, or a few $1 million up front here or there, and it's just part of negotiating, and it's just part of anything that's ever been done when you sign a contract with anybody.
And I have to assume that they know the number of years and about the total salary that he's going to get. I bet you if I had to bet on it, I bet it comes down to like the off-season workout bonuses, like Trayvon Diggs right now, who is likely to miss out on $500,000 of base salary because he has not been at off-season workouts. Micah likes to travel in the offseason, and he's in and out of the building. He likes to do his own workouts. He was overseas for a couple weeks. I'm sure there's part of that in there where he doesn't want to lose money by not necessarily being at the Star every single day, and that's likely the holdup here.
I'm saying there probably that probably is a piece of this deal, and again, there's little. I think it's such little minute things, but in the big scheme of things, it's the perception of all of it. It's the how you negotiate it, and can you imagine if you didn't look to negotiate these things? Can you imagine how the media would scrutinize? Well, wait a minute, you didn't put something in there about him. If he were to get hurt, and again, I hate going through these kind of scenarios, but wait a minute, you got guys who would say, well, he's not supposed to be here. He's not supposed to be here during the off season. This is not, and all this started when, guys were, really in teams like Buffalo and Green Bay where they want to get the hell out of there during the off season. That's kind of where it all, all this started from.
Oh, it's nice up here in Buffalo in the summer. Come on, Stretch.
Yeah, it is. It's really nice. What is that? About 17 or 18 days. It's great. Yeah. The problem is the other 350 days of the year. Yeah, you might as well tattoo a sickle and hammer on your ass because you're basically communist.
Nice.
You're not wrong. It's pretty cold up here. I mean, we just got to summer about 2 days ago, so I get it.
Well, that was
you got your first little sunburn. I can see you out
Oh
there.
yeah, listen, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you it was 49 degrees here on Sunday and it was 91 yesterday. Like summer
nice.
finally broke here up in.
I'm sure you're not. Just like I'm sure you weren't putting. You're probably out there putting that mayonnaise on you and your kids at 50 SPF and getting them all lathered up. I get it.
Right. Well, Marcus, that was a nice segue. When we come back, I want to ask you a little bit more about what's going on with Trayvon Diggs, because he has not been there and could get that ding if the Cowboys decide to do that. We'll talk about that and more. Also, Stephen Jones had another interesting comment. I'll share that with you coming up too. But we want to hear from you via the comment crew. Please jump in. We want you to be a part of the show. Hello to Bishop Frank, Dr. Newkirk, jumping in saying hello. Good morning to you as well. And we will be back with more after this as the Cowboys Squad Show continues on a Thursday. All right, well, the NBA playoffs are in full swing. The NBA finals are now set, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Now, if you have kind of a feel about a player that might be showing up in a big moment, you could track their trends, and that will help you build your next bet. Or you can combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds. It's really cool. So if you're new to FanDuel, right now is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you will get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, we are back. The Cowboys Squad Show, final day of OTAs today, and then next week, mandatory minicamp will be Tuesday through Thursday. Marcus Mosher, the co-host, along with Landon McCool of the Daily Locked On Cowboys podcast, and the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, so Marcus, you mentioned Trayvon Diggs in danger of missing out on $500,000 from his base salary. Now, kind of a mixed message, right? The Cowboys said that he's doing well, he's progressing, everything is quote positive, but he's working out in Florida, hasn't been there. I don't know. It sounds like maybe they're privately saying it's okay to stay away, but we won't know until.
Yeah, it's a very weird situation. So first of all, Brian Schottenheimer has not been a guy yet who has kind of openly criticized any player in the press conference. So it's hard to take too much away from saying, he's doing well. We have seen some workout videos with Trayvon where it looks like he's rehabbing, he's getting closer. But this is just a really weird situation all the way around. Todd Archer from ESPN reported earlier this week that Trayvon is in danger of missing out on $500,000 in base salary because he has not attended at least 84% of the offseason workouts. And I know a lot of people are maybe hammering the Cowboys on that, but like this is negotiated in his contract. When Diggs signed the contract, he knew that he was expected to be at the Star practicing, rehabbing, and he just hasn't been there. And the Cowboys kind of don't know where he's at with the rehab because he hasn't been there. So we had the comments from Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones earlier this offseason saying they weren't thrilled with the way that Diggs handled the rehab from the torn ACL. He hasn't been around. He's also Micah's best friend who hasn't been around a ton. All I know is this is a very weird situation. And I think the Cowboys are just crossing their fingers, hoping that the rehab is going well, and they'll find out probably the first time next week at minicamp.
Yeah, to evaluate that, right? If you're if you're spending that kind of money on a player, you want him in your building. You want Britt Brown. You want that crew of those guys working to get his rehab done, working on his, workouts. What is he doing? How are we doing that? How are we implementing that? How are we seeing this on a day-to-day basis? And then you're there knowing, hey, okay, we upped this workout today. Did he get any swelling? Were there any issues? I mean, it's all the things that go with it. So, he's chosen to do his thing down in Miami for whatever reason. And, his brother decided not to show up to OTAs because he was down there in Miami and they're hanging out on a boat. Who knows what's going on? But at the end of the day, he's going to cost himself money, and all those things are negotiated in, like we just got through talking about. It's all part of the business, and it is a business.
It's also very interesting with DaRon Bland, who's going into the final year of his contract. To me, Coach, it feels very much like after the 2025 season, the Cowboys are going to have a decision to make, right? Do they keep Trayvon Diggs and let DaRon Bland hit free agency? Do they sign DaRon Bland to a contract extension and maybe release Trayvon Diggs? Maybe they just feel like, hey, multiple injuries now. He's not been on the field enough. The work ethic, off the field isn't there. Or do both guys have bad years and they just move on from both and completely redo their cornerback room? I think they have to be open to all possibilities here. And I also wonder with Diggs at this point in his career, coming off 2 major knee injuries, how much juice does he have left? He wasn't a speedster coming out of Alabama, and we know that cornerback position is so important to have that athleticism. This is a very, very important year for Trayvon Diggs.
Yeah, and you have both of these corners, in my mind, both Diggs and Bland are somewhat, and I'm going to use this term loosely, they're riverboat gamblers as corners. I mean, They like to sit on routes. They like to jump routes. You see Diggs get beat several times a year on double moves. And the reason he gets beat on double moves is because he's a gambler. You go back to when he was in college, he was that way in college. He was not fast. He was not a big workout guy in college. I remember, one of my close friends, I'm not going to mention his name, has gotten tons of guys ready for the combine. And I remember Diggs' agent called him late to get him ready. And even my guy was saying, this guy's a lazy guy. He's not really in his DNA. And so, you take the good with the bad, but then he comes in here and he plays, and boy, I mean, he sits on routes. He makes big interceptions. He gets turnovers when you need it. So it's the give and get in any situation that you're going to deal with. And that's what it becomes is okay, we've got 2 of these corners who like to sit on routes, who are really good at turning the football over in critical situations, but they also get beat at times. And then you have to weigh, is this what we want, or do we want to go a different direction? I think we're saying the same thing. We're just saying it in different ways. But I do think they have a big decision to make coming up. And what do they want to do with that position, and how do they want to move forward, along with how do they fit into a new defensive coordinator scheme?
And I think with DaRon Bland playing in the slot this year, I know Bland's kind of expressed some concerns about what that might do to his market next offseason. But if I were the Cowboys and I were the front office, I would look at Bland being willing to play in the slot. And he already had an all-pro season outside as, hey, this is a guy that's willing to do whatever it takes to help this defense be good, right? And that's the kind of culture that we want. Guys that are selfless and that'll come in and play where we need them. I won't be shocked, even if Bland has only an average year, if they decide to keep Bland over Diggs for that exact reason. It's just Brian Schottenheimer is trying to build a winning culture, and maybe they feel like Bland is the type of guy that can help them get there, rather than a really talented corner in Trayvon Diggs, who I think has more natural ability than Bland, but maybe doesn't work quite as hard.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's going to come down to, right? It's going to come down to guys, making their case for where you want to go as an organization, and then where you want to go as a football team. And we're not going to know right now, because guess what? If they go out and go 4-13, 5-12, the chance you're going to be run their ass off out of here.
We both agree, though, that it's the chance of both these cornerbacks being back in 2026 is small, because I don't see them paying $20 million a year for Trayvon Diggs and then another 20 for DaRon Bland, plus making Micah Parsons the highest paid defensive player in the league. I just don't see that happening.
I'm glad you didn't go the next step of that, because then you would have gotten our other host over there to go, well, 27 minutes into the show before Stretch realized how much we were paying the quarterback at everything.
We always got to talk about the quarterback at some point. Everything comes back to Dak, right?
Coach, I had to do that. I mean, it was, it's like playing the hits, like at you go to a concert, you gotta play the hits, right?
I understand. The Alan Parsons Project. You want me to sing the song? It's already called. I got it, man.
I just know the intro to that song. The words. No, but and to that point, Stephen Jones was asked if the team is looking at any post June 1st editions, and he said, we don't have anything else that's on the front burner. So it sounds like, at least, for right now, until they get things going with mini camp and then training camp, they want to see what they got.
Well, not only that, but some of the veterans that are available right now, they're looking at their summer calendar being like, hey, I got this vacation coming up here in the middle of July. I got this thing to do. If you're a veteran like Stephon Gilmore, the last thing you want to do is go out to Oxnard and have to practice in late July, early August. You'd rather just sit back, do all your summer vacationing, and then come in like week 2 of the preseason, because that gives you like 3 or 4 weeks to get ready for week 1. So I think Linval Joseph was somebody they signed late into training camp last year. If they're going to sign a veteran, and they will, they're going to sign a couple to fill out the roster. Those guys aren't being signed here on June 5th because those guys don't want to practice yet.
Yeah, and what he's really saying is we have a lot of evaluating to do. We've got a lot of guys from we got young guys in here. We've got guys that we need to get evaluated before we make a decision on bringing a veteran in. That's what we're going to do, and I think that's what he's saying. We got to evaluate what we have. We've got to go to Oxnard and see, from a running back room, what does it look like? We know what it looks like right now, but hey, do we feel good about both these veterans? Do we feel that, even a guy like Deuce Vaughn, is he going to really give us something here that we need? And all of that is going to go on for every single position, and including, this corner position. And I'm like you. I absolutely think that you deal with a guy that has been in the league in Gilmore, that understands every single scenario, smart guy. I mean, you play for Bill Belichick, you're a pretty smart player, whether you're judging him on running around the 24-year-old or not. At the end of the day, he knows what he's talking about from a football standpoint. So, yeah, I mean, and I don't need to see any more of Stephon Gilmore. I know what he is, right? I know what he can do.
And the same thing for the defensive tackles. Like, there are some defensive tackles out there that I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys sign. They just don't need to do it right now. They want to see what their 7th-round picks look like. They want to see some of their young guys. They want Mozzie Smith to give as many snaps as possible. And if you need to go out and sign one of those guys, they're still going to be available 2 months from now. Don't you worry.
All right. Well, hey, speaking of the D-line, want to mention one of the Cowboys rookies when we come back, and also Super Bowl predictions came up at OTAs this week. I want to run that by you guys as well. We do have some questions for Marcus and the coach. We'll get to those when we come back as well. Great to be with you on this Thursday. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right, welcome back to the Cowboys Squad Show. The coach, Glenn Stretch Smith, and Marcus Mosher, the co-host of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast. Again, they have been all over it every single day with OTAs wrapping up today, and we have the start of mandatory minicamp coming up next week. All right, again, it's only OTAs, but apparently Cowboys rookie run stopper and 7th-round pick Jay Toya has reportedly looked really, really good, really solid so far.
Yeah, so Jay Toya is a 7th-round pick from UCLA. He's a run-stopping defensive tackle who I'm excited about. I thought he was somebody that could have easily went in the 4th, 5th round. You get him in the 7th round. That's a good value. Now, he's not going to be a pass rusher. He is this wide body, 1st and 2nd down run defender who I'm excited about. But we know that these defensive tackles generally take a couple of years in the NFL before they get used to the speed and the strength of NFL offensive linemen. I don't doubt that they're impressed or they're excited about him, but I just want to know, like, how does a 7th-round pick flash at defensive tackle at OTAs when there's no contact and they're wearing shirts and shorts? I'm just a little confused by that, Coach. That's all.
Yeah, he's able to get it. He's able at 350 pounds to get himself skinny into a certain window, and I mean, you're not, when you're not coming off the football with pads on. I think all that sounds good, and you're right. I mean, they need somebody who can play a double team block. They need somebody who can hold the point, not get blown off the football. But until you put pads on, we don't know anything. I do know that I have a close friend of mine who's on the staff at UCLA, and he speaks, he speaks positively, but he said he is a run stuffer. That's all he is. That he's not gonna get to the quarterback. He's not gonna show you some kind of pass rush moves. He's not gonna do all that. But you need those guys too. And so I agree. I mean, we talked about Linval Joseph. I mean, Linval Joseph's a big, thick inside guy, but he was an experienced, big, thick inside guy that knew how to, at least hold the point. So, again, all those things we're going to see once we figure out we get 2 games into the preseason, and then tell me about these inside guys and what they're doing and how they flashed in a real game.
And I hate to be like that, where I'm just dismissing all of the notes coming out of OTAs, because I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but like, I do want people to realize, like, this is not tackle football. It's hardly real football, Coach, because it's walkthroughs, right? You're trying to learn the scheme, where to line up, what you're doing on specific plays. I just don't want anybody to overreact too much, good or bad, to what we're hearing in OTAs. We'll find out about Jay Toya. We'll find out if he's going to be a good player. We'll probably have a decent idea coming out of the preseason. I just don't want people thinking that the Cowboys got the next BJ Raji here from Green Bay in the 7th round. Let's wait and see.
I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting to hear the. Yeah, I get it. You're not being a downer. We're just calling it like we see it, and I don't think anybody that takes it that way, I'm absolutely a glass half full guy. I'm a realistic glass half full guy. I'm not telling you that it's, I'm not telling you that it's apple crown royal over there. I might tell you that it's water that's half full right now.
Well, I do want to say, the Cowboys need a player like this. And yes, he's probably only going to be a run defender in the NFL. That's okay. You drafted him in the 7th round to do one job, help you stop the run. They don't need a starter at defensive tackle. They need somebody that can come in and give you 15 quality snaps to spell Mozzie Smith, that can come in on 3rd and short and help you stop the run. If Jay Toya can do that, you hit a home run in the 7th round. Most of these 7th round picks don't end up making your roster. If he's somebody that can come in year 1 and play it all and can contribute, great. That's fantastic.
Maybe you could
Well,
stop.
you made the key point. I don't care if you're talking about defensive tackle, defensive back. What you're talking about is the 7th round pick comes in and upgrades your roster. Then you've done good with the direction that you've gone there, or you don't have a very good football team. So you could look at that 2 ways.
That is true. If you have a lot of day 3 picks that are playing for you, it's either that you hit big home runs like DeRon Bland, who did it as a rookie, or your roster is really bad that these guys have to be on the field because your veterans aren't any good.
All right, well, I'll give it to you before I make the comment. You don't have a very good football team if you have more than 1 or 2 of those guys after round 5 that make your team. That's including undrafted free agents.
Yeah, and there were a couple of years ago where the Cowboys would have several 5th or 6th round picks that weren't going to make the roster. Then all of a sudden they tweaked their ankle, and now they're on the injured reserve list for a year. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case this year because they've lost a lot of talent in free agency. Maybe not like top end, high end starters, but those guys that are at the middle back end of the roster. And I think they need to fill those spots in. So I think you're going to see more of those 5th, 6th, 7th round picks make the roster than in maybe previous seasons.
Right.
Yeah, well, again, these are all things that we're going to have lots of time to discuss, lots of time to evaluate and throw around because guess what? There are other teams that will be discarding guys as well. And then then it becomes, okay, is this guy that we have better than the guy that so-and-so just let go? And, all those things and reshuffling the deck and trying to turn the bottom end of your roster is something that I think is very important, and it's a big job for Will McClay and the pro scouting staff.
So let me ask you this, Coach. OTA's final day today. Talk to us about what is the difference, what is the jump from OTAs to mandatory minicamp, which will be 3 days next week.
Yeah, so you're wanting to get them out of there for a few days. You're wanting to get out of there for a few days, and you're making sure all your practice schedules are done. Everything is done that we want to get installed in those practices, and you want to make sure that everybody is up to par with what you're doing. So today, in my mind, is really a mental day. They're not going to do. They're really wrapping things up and trying to get these guys to say, hey, now when we come back in here, we're going to be going fast. Here's the things we're going to install. Make sure you're looking at your iPads. Make sure we've got everything, and we're very crisp coming back in here. And so those are the ways that you're going to challenge guys, and then you're going to hit the ground running in the same fashion that you would in Oxnard, and you're going to start to put in what is the basis of what you want to do offensively and the basis of what you want to do defensively. And that's what you've been prepping these guys for during all of these OTAs, during those rookie mini camps. You've been input, and okay, if they didn't take the input very good, you've seen it on film, okay, through the OTAs, okay, and you've gone and you've corrected, and you've said, now, fellas, this is a big part of what we're going to do. Make sure if we're talking about a defensive back, make sure you get your alignment right. If we're talking about a receiver, make sure you're +2 from the numbers on this route. Make sure all of those things that you're trying to get as much inputted as you can input, and then correcting that off of what you've seen through the film and through OTAs, so that when minicamp cracks open, you really are. You're taking that as, hey, this really is day one. It's mandatory, and we're here, and we're here to go to work, and it's part of, it's part of your job, and it's part of what you do, and it's going to be dependent upon whether you're with this team or not. Because the one thing I had very little patience with were mental mistakes. And I think coaches still today are that way. I'm not patient with mental mistakes. We're here all the time. You can go in there and look at film all the time. We got 9,000 cut-ups. It's all on your iPad. So what that tells me is, are you spending any time outside this building preparing yourself to be a professional football player.
And look, the Cowboys have a brand new scheme on offense. I know Brian Schottenheimer was the offensive coordinator last year, but they were running Mike McCarthy's offense. Brian Schottenheimer is going to want to have a new scheme. They have a new defensive coordinator who has an entirely different scheme than Mike Zimmer, and they've got a new special teams coach. So I think the plan is, or the goal is, to get all the installation done in OTAs and mini camps, so that when we get out to Oxnard and the practices start and the pads come on, we're not having to waste entire days just doing install periods. And this is where attendance is really important. And the Cowboys have had really good attendance this offseason at OTAs. Those practice reps are so limited, and they're even more limited now than they were, Coach, when, let's say, you were coaching, right? Like, there used to be 2 a days. That's not the case anymore. Now you get one practice in the morning or in the afternoon, and then you have one more, and you have a practice, you have a day off. So it's very limited what they can do on the field. Let's not waste our time having to go over plays.
And practice is structured differently. You don't have as much individual time. You got more team time. You got more togetherness. You got more all of those things. And so, or we've been working on we're an offensive line, and we've been working on a 6-inch step here, or hand placement here, or head placement here. Hey, we don't have time to continue to go over that from an individual standpoint. We may have 8 or 10 minutes of individual, and the rest of this is teamwork, whether it's inside run, whether it's outside run, whether it's 7-on-7, 1-on-1s, we just go on and on. But I mean, practice gets structured differently than what has been I'm not going to say a slower paced, but it's been more of a teaching pace. Yes. Where now you're going to go into we got to teach and coach off of film. We don't have time to sit here and coach you through a mistake, because guess what? The next rep's going, because just like you said, time is precious, and we don't have that much. So we have to maximize all of that.
And that's what you try to get done in OTA, so you can maximize your training camp practices when we get there. So that's what I expect to happen now. I think they're going to try to be efficient in the practices this week, and then obviously minicamp next week. But you're not going to see a lot of like, hey, let's go do one-on-ones at receiver DB for the next 45 minutes. Like, that stuff's not going to happen over the next couple of weeks.
All right. Well, looking forward to that. And again, OTA's final day today, mandatory minicamp next week, and we will be all over it. Our squad shows will continue, and of course, Marcus and Landon will be with you every day with the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast. A couple of quick questions, guys. Antonio Miles asks, can we watch the Cowboys practice in person? I know they had a couple OTA days open. Or
just to the media. Yeah, just in the media. So, no, you're not going to be able to watch them in person. Now, I will say DallasCowboys.com, I believe, for minicamp is going to stream some of those practices. Okay. That's the best way to consume practice for your Cowboy fan.
Now, training camp in Oxnard, though, that's different. That's a big event.
Yes, fans can go out to training camp and practice and watch. Yep.
Absolutely. All right. Trill2X says, since the Lions center, Frank Ragnow, retired, do y'all think Hoffman for Reeder is a reasonable trade?
Yes, but I don't think Detroit is going to be doing that now. They drafted a guard in round 2, Tate Ratledge, who has some center experience. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays inside. I think Detroit's going to do what a lot of these teams does. They're going to evaluate their spot right now, their centers, their guards, who can kick inside. And if they get to mid-August and they feel like they're not good enough at the position, that's when they might make a trade. But yeah, I think that's at least a good thought. Hoffman might not fit this new coaching staff who wants some bigger offensive linemen. Detroit runs a lot of wide zone concepts. Not completely dismissing it, but I don't think it's going to happen right now.
Yeah, and Dallas needs the depth, but I'm like you. I like the thought. I also think that Detroit, I believe, signed an Arizona, Cologne, I believe, is the guy who had been at Arizona, had some experience at Arizona. So I think they're going to look and see what they have before they start going through the process of making calls or exploratory calls for trades. Like you're going to see every single team is going to do this. All 32 teams are dealing with deficiencies in some areas, and they'll be evaluating to see what they have and making adjustments from there. But I like the thought of that. But then the next thing we'd be talking about is where the Cowboys are going to get some kind of inside depth from.
Yeah, they do have a little bit of depth at guard with TJ Bass, who was on the roster last year. They signed Robert Jones. They signed Shadiq Charles. So they do have some depth there. But who's the backup center? Is it Tyler Booker sliding over to center if you need him? Can TJ Bass play that spot? I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if Hoffman is somebody the Cowboys move on from via trade, because I just don't know what Clayton Adams and Connor Riley are going to think about a sub 300-pound center.
Yeah, and I don't either, but I know you can't take away starts in the NFL, and I know you can't take away that experience. So to me, you better value some of that. I don't give a damn how good a coach you are. Yep. At the end of the day, you got to value a guy that has been in the fire and understands and frankly did a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
All right. One more O-line question. 1906 exec says, everybody is concerned about Tyler Guyton and his 7 sacks allowed in 2024, but nobody talks about Terrence Steele, who allowed 9 sacks, 36 hurries, multiple quarterback hits. He is a liability.
I mean, it's fair to be concerned about Terrence Steele. I don't think he had a particularly good season last year. And now the right tackles, it used to be the left tackles would face the premier pass rushers, and the right tackles, a lot of times you'd get some easier matchups. That's not the case anymore. Teams are moving around their best pass rushers. And in fact, a lot of the best pass rushers line up on that side. I think the Cowboys are hoping that the new scheme helps Terrence Steele. He's a little bit further removed from that major knee injury he had. But yeah, the Cowboys have questions at both tackle spots. I think they're hoping that Steele can get back to the player that we saw in 2021, 2022. And they're going to need him to, because they've played a gauntlet of edge rushers starting in week 1 and week 2 with the Giants and the Eagles.
Yeah, and a lot of that's going to be with how you turn the protection. Who are you giving help to? Which way are you going to send them back? How are you going to do all that? So a lot of that schematically is happening. But I'll go back to the comments we made just before that. What was Terrence Steele? An undrafted free agent who's come in and started for you? That's, that tells you where the Cowboys were at that time when he was getting that experience. So, guys, especially at that position, are a little like, they can be at times a little like baseball players, where, baseball players go through a hitting funk. I mean, they can go through that too. Now, how does this new staff, how do they get them coached up, and are they playing different techniques? They're going to be playing different techniques than, what they had with either Hudson Houck or Mike Solari. They'll be playing some different techniques. So how do they pick up how do they pick up those techniques, and how do they implement all that?
All right, we're going to take our final timeout, and when we return, some Super Bowl talk at Cowboys OTAs, and we have a Cowboys trade rumor, another one. And we'll get to more of your comments as well via the comment crew. Thank you for being with us. We're getting closer. OTAs wrapping up today. Mandatory minicamp kicks off next week. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. We are back. The Cowboys Squad Show. Final day today of OTAs for the Cowboys. Mandatory minicamp will begin next week. That is Marcus Mosher, the co-host of the Daily Locked On Cowboys podcast, with Landon McCool, who will be back with us again on Monday night, and the one and only, the coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, guys, Brian Schottenheimer was asked during the media session earlier this week, if he thinks the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, you got to ask, right?
Well, every coach should feel like the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the goal is to win the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
I mean, you need to have irrational confidence when you're a coach, because you need to believe that your guys are going to be able to get it done. It's kind of a silly question to ask a coach, because what are they going to say? No, we have no chance of winning a Super Bowl. Of course he's going to be positive about it, but we're also talking about Super Bowl in June. You can't win a Super Bowl in June, coach.
No.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, what do you want? What do you want his answer to be? We are fighting our ass off to get the 9 wins. We hope like crazy that'll get us a spot in the dance, and then I just hope we don't go out there and crap down our leg. That's
Exactly.
what we're working on here. I mean,
and so many things are going to happen between now and even like week 8. It's just weird. Like, we can't say definitively that one team is going to be the Super Bowl or one team isn't. So it's nonsense.
Yeah, it is. Well, to finish his quote, and I thought of you, Coach, Schottenheimer said, I think we are. I don't get caught up in the Cowboys' 30-year Super Bowl drought. This is 1 year. This is the first year of mine. When the season's over, we move on. We do. You move on. 2024 is over. Now it's 2025. Are we going to win the Super Bowl this year? I hope so. I think we are. If we don't, you move on. I'm competing every day to try to win a Super Bowl. If I'm looking back and worrying about that, I'm not focused on what really matters, which is making sure we have an incredible practice today.
Yeah, I just wrote this up. This is kind of going down Commerce Street. This is how I think we ought to go down. Is when the parade wins, we'll go right down by the grassy knoll. And yeah, I mean, I think we all think about that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with. You guys hear me say it all the time. I'm all about the Casey Kasem mentality. You keep your feet in the ground and reach for the stars. Let's reach for the stars. That's part of being a coach. That's part of how you're going to, talk to your players is, knowing that we've got to get better every day. And I mean, some guys didn't like Jason Garrett's mentality of, hey, we're getting better today. And everybody has a different mindset about how they do that. But I like the approach, and we'll be back to talk about it when, not if, when adversity hits, and then how do they adjust from that? Because that's just part of this deal, and part of building a culture, and part of doing all the things that he's doing, just like you would expect any first time or any head coach, especially a first time head coach, to go out and say.
Yeah, and I look at someone like Tyler Booker, who was born in 2004, I believe, which is crazy to even think about. I mean, he wasn't even alive during that Cowboy-Panther playoff game in 2003. So, it's not his burden to worry about, the Cowboys not winning a lot of playoff games or making it to the NFC Championship game back in the early 2000s. All he can control is what he does this year. So, yeah, the players shouldn't feel any additional pressure because of what Rocket Ishmael and Joey Galloway were unable to accomplish,
Dang, boy. Whew. That's the second time I'm beat up. You know what? I may resign today. I'm tired of feeling old on this damn show. Tired of it.
That's awesome. All right. We have another Cowboys trade rumor. And again, to your point, Marcus, I don't want to say it's nonsense, but you need to take all of this here in June for what it is. But you never know. This one is apparently the Cowboys as a potential trade destination for Browns tight end David Njoku, because last season was a very rough season, as we've talked about, for Jake Ferguson.
So let me just behind the scenes tell you how this works, because I've been a part of all these websites and content creation places. You get into June and your traffic is really low because there's no football going on. The draft is over. So what do you start doing is you're looking at guys that are either on the last year of their contract, or you're looking at players who've had players drafted at that same position, like the Browns drafted with Harold Fannin, and you think, okay, hey, maybe the Browns could make a trade. which teams or fan base could we get the most excited about a trade that would result in the most clicks? Oh, the Dallas Cowboys have a huge fan base. Boom. Let me write up a 400-word article and make my day's salary.
That's it.
David Njoku is a really good player. The Cleveland Browns are not moving on from him. In fact, he might be their best offensive player. He is. He's a fantastic player. They drafted Harold Fannin to back him up. He's going to be like an H-back for them. I love David Njoku. Cleveland's not trading him. And Dallas has a bunch of tight ends that they need to figure out what they're doing with Jake Ferguson and Luke Schoonmaker and Brevin Spann-Ford, who they're really excited about going into year 2. So this is fun to talk about because, by golly, there's not a lot to talk about here on June 5th, but it's not happening.
I mean, I like the thought of Njoku coming in here. I also like the thought of Jeff, saying Alan Parsons project, and we got Jake Ferguson. We have Jay Ferguson. We could sing Out on Thunder Island and go down that road and make it a whole music scenario. But hey guys, nothing's impossible. And I'm like you. What are the chances of Cleveland? They do some crazy things in Cleveland. I mean, you get over there at that mistake by the lake, you start drinking some of that water coming out of there. You might do something crazy like draft. What do they have? 4 quarterbacks right now. Maybe they would cut him loose. Who knows?
Yeah. The Cowboys already made their big trade from the AFC North this year. I think they probably maxed out on their quota over there. But again, that's the other thing. It's like they don't really have the draft capital after giving up a 3rd and a 5th round pick. Even if someone like David Njoku were to be available, they're not going to make that trade. It's a good thought. I appreciate people thinking outside the box, but you're going to have to find something else to get clicks here next week.
Let me ask you this, in all seriousness, fair to say that, there's going to be a kind of a borderline full-fledged tight end competition in camp? I mean,
I hope so. I mean, I'm hoping they just don't gift wrap this job to Jake Ferguson because I want to see what Luke Schoonmaker can do. I want to see how Brevin Spann-Ford looks in an offense that maybe utilizes more of a blocking tight end. Yeah, I'm hopeful.
I believe it comes down to who the quarterback is comfortable with. I mean, running the inside option routes, you have to be absolutely 1,000% in step with the quarterback because turning outside or inside is the difference in throwing a pick and turning the football over or, maintaining and keeping a drive alive. So it really is down to, who Dak is comfortable with in that role. And Dak showed you he was comfortable with Ferguson when they let Schultz get out of the building. So do I think we need to see what John Stevens can do and Spann-Ford? And yeah, I think you throw those guys in there and see what they can do. But at the end of the day, it'll be the quarterback, I think, making the decision on who is he comfortable with and what does he feel like he can best keep drives alive in those really tight situations in a football game.
All right. Well, guys, this show flew by way too quick, but enjoyed it as always. Marcus, before we go, final thoughts from you. What can we look forward to with you and Landon on the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast?
Yeah, we're going to continue to break down all the news coming out of OTAs. We'll get you ready for minicamp, and I'm sure Landon and I will figure out ways to try to make Coach feel older again. So that's what we're working on this week.
And it doesn't take much. I can promise you it does not take much to be reminded. I've got an 18-year-old son, and I'm reminded constantly. So it's good to be able to get on here and just, reconfirm, what, I'm old. That's just how it is.
I like to remind Coach that I think I was like 7 or 8 when Joey Galloway tore his ACL, and I was crying. Last time I cried during a football game was when I was 8 or 9. So
yeah, like I said, I mean, I'll go see if I can get one of those brand new ARP cards today and see if I can get a discount somewhere.
All right, Coach. And other than when you ripped me, we did not talk about Dak's contract once. the entire
show.
I did not. If you call that a ripping, then we really need to have a conversation. You know what? Every once in a while, you have to kind of take that little shot to the ribs, and instead of going, oh, you just kind of go, all right, and you just kind of go, with the flow, because that is what you've done. Is you say, you count down the minutes before you know I'm going to spin into talking about what's a bad contract.
There you go. I like it. On the way out. That's great.
Shot. There you go. The dunk with the finish. All right. Guys, we'll do it again on Monday night. Again, Marcus and Landon on the Daily Locked On Cowboys podcast. Enjoy the final day of OTAs, and we will look forward to the start of mini camp next week. Already here. Looking forward to it. Guys, thank you, and we'll do it again. This has been the Cowboys Squad Show.